All right, be honest. How much money have you put into your D&D table? Your accoutrements, if you will. D&D is the original paper and pencil game. You add a few dice in there and you got everything you need to run a successful and memorable campaign. But man, are we living in the golden age of D&D supplies. You've got minis, you've got figurines, you've got terrain builders, you've got 3D printers that can go ahead and make you like a dungeon custom tailored to your every whim. It's a beautiful time to be alive. But if you're like me, you're not sitting atop a golden pile of coins, much like Smog counting his money and taking naps in between eating hobbits. You're not. You don't have to walk through the maw of a dragon just to find yourself some good D&D minis, terrain, and yes, accoutrement. Common House Bard here. This video is all about finding the right stuff for your D&D campaign without having to buy complicated set pieces, intricate, elaborate minis, basically how to run your game on the cheap. Please hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, let me know what I missed. So you want to make your game memorable and incorporate a lot of cool design elements, but you don't want to like spend $1 bajillion to get there. Full disclosure, I got no dog in the fight here. I use some digital resources, but I'm a pretty low-tech DM. It's a romantic notion to me to go back to the paper and pencil days. We've been doing it for years. I mean, why change? Get off my lawn! Anywho, to make your game more memorable, I'm going to break down your gaming sessions into 4 major things. We're going to talk about each one and how to kind of spice them up and keep your players interested and more importantly, stay under a budget. 4 basic categories. We got the preparation for the game, the non-combat phase of the game, the combat phase of the game, and then I put aside like a special category of like the big like end boss battle. Alright, let's talk preparation. The beauty of Dungeons & Dragons is its accessibility. All you need to play, really, at the end of the day is paper, pencil, the rules, and some dice. I mean, that's about it. I mean, you can make it work with that. Now, the odds are you probably have a copy of the Player's Handbook and maybe even the Dungeon Master Guide. But even if you don't have them, there are some really great digital resources that can really get you started and guide you throughout the whole game. D20 SRD, D&D 5e, Wiki, D&D and Beyond, just to name a few. Finding the basic rules is pretty easy. You can also find a lot of templates for character sheets right online, or again, you can go the old-fashioned route and just write them on the paper. You got the pencil, you got the paper, write down what you need to know. And of course, there's the back in my day option of like going to the library. And you should also be able to find dice. But if you can't, there's also some great digital tools. They'll be able to roll whatever die you want, thanks to the good old interweb. Now, you may have noticed that I left out things like terrain and battle maps and minis. These things are great tools, and they can add a lot to your game, but you can play without them. And you should never delay jumping into your game and having fun just because you don't have, like, a proper elf. Like, I'm sorry, I said that my druid was an elf, and this is clearly a human monk. Look, never delay having fun and starting your game just because you don't have, like, the tools. It took me 20 years to collect the minis, the terrain, the stuff that I like to use day to day, and I still feel like I don't have nearly enough of what I want. So, like, I promise, the stuff is cool, but it's not the stuff that's going to be responsible for you having a good time. It's you and the players that are going to have a good time. If you rely on the stuff, you're going to have a bad time. If you're relying on the minis, you're going to have a bad time. Alright, secondly, let's talk about the non-combat aspects of the role-playing experience. The non-combat section is by far going to be the bulk of your campaign. So you want to make these sessions memorable. Start by utilizing the senses. What can you do with sound, light, scent, even taste and touch? Never underestimate the power of ambiance. With the proper ambiance, anything is possible. Set the space up right, and your players will love it. The odds are they won't even understand why. As far as lighting goes, find something comfortable. Whether you're going to light candles, I mean, that in itself can be its own ambiance, but be careful, you got paper on the table. But at the very least, don't put on your bright LED halogen, like the lights you'd find in the department store. Don't play under those lights. They hurt everyone's eyes. Unless you're like in some weird, hot, neon white light, like hellscape, and you're trying to make your players uncomfortable. I guess then, yeah, hit them with it. When it comes to sound, there are so many independent music creators out there. There's soundtracks, there's movie scores. There's just so many cool vibes that you can put just by playing soft music under your whole session. If you've got a bard in your party, this is especially important. What instrument are they playing? Because I promise, when combat starts and you have the bagpipes queued up, and this is a real, one of my characters was a bardic bagpiper. You have the bagpipe music queued up, you enter combat, they say, I'm going to use bardic inspiration. Boop! You hit it, and it's great. It's like they're in the song. It works especially great with bagpipes. Ask me how I know. As far as scents go, I mean, we all have like our incense and our essential oil diffusers. Like if your group is going to spend some time in a temple or something, light up some incense, man. That can just add another element. It plays on the sense of smell, and it can add that like otherworldly feeling to a moment. And realistically, at the minimum, ensure that the space you're going to use has been cleaned. Like nobody wants to show up and play D&D in the cat litter room. In general, we want to tend away from the bad smells and move towards the good smells. And taste. Now, I promised a budget, and I am a bard of my word. So, a great way to combine smell and taste, man, learn how to bake some bread. I mean, honestly, that's just a skill everybody should have anyways. Fresh bread makes your house smell great, and also, then you get to serve it in-game. Or if your party is going into a tavern that night, have a special beverage that's waiting for them to explore, something that maybe they've never had before, because then, again, you're associating that taste with a really fun memory. I mean, we're playing D&D. We're going to snack anyways, so like you might as well make it something that fits into your game. Also, since we're on the subject, if you've never seen Quincy's Tavern, you need to go see Quincy's Tavern. That is an endless font of ideas and inspiration. Finally, and this is very important, when I say touch, I do not mean touch your players. Bad touch. No. I mean use props. Make or find something that your players can physically manipulate, something they can put in their hands. Draw out a treasure map. Find a trinket to actually give them something if they were to find like an artifact or a piece of treasure. It's just something to touch in your hand. It just engages the brain in a different way, and it's going to create a sense memory. So I had a campaign once where we were starting in the tavern, and I had a good sense of who the characters were. So I went thrifting, and I found mugs that matched their personalities. But having something to physically hold and as a link between the world you're creating and the world they're in, that really gets your characters invested. And it makes those moments seem really special. But seriously, people discard absolute treasures into thrift shops. Plus, you get to reuse, it's a win for the planet, it's a win-win-win. Win-win-win-win-win. Time for the combat! By the very nature of combat, it is extremely hard to do combat out on a table without physical representations of the minis, of the terrain, of the room. I mean, even if you manage to keep track of like where all the players are, you're just keeping that mental map. You're like, yeah, they're there. I promise you, your players have a completely different mental map than you do, and it's only going to lead to arguments. No, I'm sorry, Dave, but like in my head, you're 5 feet outside of the cone of the flaming hands, so yeah, you cast it, but like you didn't hit anybody. Don't do that. Don't do that. Find something. Anything. Pillage your old board games. Take the tokens. Flip the board over. Now you got somewhere to play. Put those tokens, even if it's a little sorry guy, that's fine. If you flip it over, there aren't squares, there aren't hexes, nothing. Grab yourself a tape measure. Each inch is 5 feet. Now everybody's got like a uniform standard measurement, and there will be no more arguments. Yes, I've heard of the enchanted tape measure. It gives you a +5 on judging distance. And since we're talking board games, I gotta give a shout out to my old 1989 copy of Hero Quest. Seriously, this game has done me so many favors over the years. It's got these little doors. It's got like this cool altar. It's got like this wardrobe with the little mouse on top of it. You'd be amazed at the little things you can find that will help add a little bit of variety, a little bit of flavor, and they're probably lying around your house right now. But for even simpler effects, for battlefield terrain, if you can find yourself a bag of moss that's like at a crafting store or something, it's cheap, and you can put those chunks of moss down like they're shrubs or foliage. And I'm serious, I'm not even kidding. Go to your driveway and pick up a handful of gravel. Find some wonky looking rocks and put them down. You've given yourself natural cover and concealment on your battleground. It's not much, but it actually adds a lot. One quick side note too. If you have time on your hands and a little bit of investment, you can print yourself some dungeon tiles right from ye old internet. And then with a glue stick and a poster board, just cut that down to whatever side you need, glue the dungeon tile imprint over the top of it, and you can make it rain dungeon tiles. Or if you have even more time and you want to invest a little further, there's some absolute beautiful work done by Matt over at RP Archive. He is an absolute terrain wizard. His stuff is bonkers, and you should definitely check it out. The best part is it's made out of cheap material. I mean, this is just your standard like pink foam, but you paint it, you put a little texture on it, and it's so easy even I can do it. Okay, finally, you've done all the above, but you've still got that like special campaign moment coming up, or the big boss battle, or whatever it is, and you want to do something to make it really memorable. So for starters, if you don't have a lot of D&D gear, if you don't have a lot of minis, you don't have a lot of terrain, but like maybe you just have one or two pieces, then that's great. Save them. Avoid the temptation of putting them out too early. Save them for that big climactic moment. But even if you have nothing, there's still so much you can do with simple theatricality. First, when they walk into the place that is going to be the big bad guy showdown, spend some time describing in detail that room. Paint them a picture. Describe the polished marble columns. There's always columns in the bad guy's lair. Describe the chanting cultists, the way they're lined up, what they're wearing. Describe how the place is flanked by flows of liquid hot magma. Give the setting some gravitas. And to help you in that, hijack your players' senses again. If you had calm, spooky music while they were exploring the dungeon, do a hard switch to something dramatic. If you had candles lit, blow them out. Like, not only does this change the light in the room, but when you blow out a candle, you get that sulfury, kind of smoky cinder burning smell in the room. So that could be like particularly effective if they're about to battle like a devil. Because now the whole room smells like cinder and ash. It got dark, it's cinder, it's ash, they're gonna die. It's like they're being pulled into the hells. And another easy and free way to give your battles a sense of grandiosity and epicness is how you describe the battle itself. You walk into the room, you see the big bad guy. Roll to hit. Hits. Roll for damage. Good job. No. No. You see the Lich standing before you. John, what would you like to do? You're going to attack. Great. John, you charge in, completely fearless against the Lich. You swing, and you connect, and you hear the desiccated ribs of the Lich crack under the weight of your broadsword. The Lich, enraged after being hit, takes his dagger and tries to plunge it into your heart. But the blow fails to connect, as at the last moment John turns aside and the dagger skims off of his breastplate. Listen, these moments, they don't cost you anything, but they draw your players in. They get them invested in the drama of the moment. Everything about that drama helps. The victory is sweeter. Even a character death is easier to swallow if it happened in the big moment, if they died in a heroic way, and they'll feel like it's heroic if you add that sense of drama. I mean, like, I just wrote this, and like, now I kind of want to know how it ends, but it's going to have to wait. So, build these... No, we got to finish this. John seizes the moment and tries to disarm the Lich as his friends look on helplessly, having failed against the mass hold person spell the Lich cast. But the Lich sees the blow coming, and with a sneer counters. It casts its bony countenance upon you. It lifts a single finger and casts a spell. With the incantation, you realize you are the target of a Finger of Death spell. Having failed your save, it far exceeds your hit point total, and the heart within your chest bursts in a pile of necrotic damage. Your paralyzed friends look on in horror as your body crumples, but only momentarily, as you then raise as a zombie to serve your new master. With new lifeless eyes, John turns and begins to devour his former friends. Sometimes you just have to close the loop. But I think you get the point. How you describe your battles, it really matters. So don't overlook describing in gory detail every hit, every miss, every mishap. And there you have it, folks. Some easy ways to give your game a little more life without having to take out a loan. And listen, I understand some of this advice might seem a little trite, a little quaint, but remember that this game was written up 50 years ago by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, and it's not like they could just walk down the street in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and buy themselves a bunch of new dice. So if those guys could figure it out, then by the hammer of Thor, so can you. Subscribe for more D&D nuts and bolts, or for some bardic buffoonery. Throw me a like, leave me a comment. I actually will respond to them. Until next time, may the dice gods smile warmly upon you. I remain your common house bard.